Hey, happy Thursday, Exiles. One of the I've spent a whole lot more time looking at my own face than I really was trained to do in seminary. So it's uh, it's comfortable and not comfortable at the same time. So if you haven't done multiple hours worth of filming with the face camera during your week, then let me tell you, you're missing out. So the thing I was just thinking about too is we'll be able to do a time lapse video or clip or something of my beard and my hair growing throughout this whole thing, and it should it should approximate. We should have a couple clips most days of this whole thing. So somebody with some technology prowess might have to handle that. So one of the things that I was thinking about with regards to exile is that the longer we do a certain type of life, the more proficient we get at it, right? And so the more we're in a routine, the more we're used to it. We're creatures of habit, human beings, right? And so we have this we have this overwhelming desire to be in a habit, and we see that throughout the whole world. I mean, we see God made all of the creatures in this world to have habits, and He made plants to have habits, and so it just follows to reason that we would use habits too, and habits help inform what we do. And I was thinking about the disjointed feel of what would have felt like the exile for the Jewish people, and I was thinking about what is some of what is some of God's encouragement to them in that time, and one of the things is always a little shocking to me because it's very close to a text that everybody's going to be familiar with. But I'm going to read a little bit from Jeremiah, and in Jeremiah chapter 29, you may be surprised to know that there are other verses other than just verse 11 in Jeremiah 29. I know, weird, huh? So there's actually a whole chapter and not just one verse there. And so I'm going to read a little bit of the rest of that chapter. This is starting in verse 4. And Jeremiah is bringing this word, and he says, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon: Build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Yes, as this is what the Lord God Almighty of Israel says: Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord." And so, as I was thinking about this, this is a letter actually Jeremiah would have sent, but it is Jeremiah in his voice. And so, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking, we like to rush ahead to verse 11 here, which is where God says, "For I know the plans I have for you." But before that, it seems like God is encouraging. They've been exiled. They've lost a war. They've lost battles. They've had their stuff taken away. They've had their homes destroyed, their temple destroyed. They're looking at all the things that they have in the world, and these things have been lost. And so God's advice to them is so counterintuitive. A lot of times we would think, well, God should tell them a secret battle plan so that they know how to go and destroy these Babylonians in a good way, or God should have given them the secret of the Abrams tank so that they could have success like we do, or the F-35. I don't know much about planes. Yeah. So we think God should have just shown them how to handle Babylon in a battle, and that would have been God's plan, but it doesn't seem like. So God says, look for prosperity for the city you're in. And He's encouraging them, pick up new expectations, pick up new habits, pick up new ways of being than the ones you expected. And one of the things that I was thinking about with all this is this is so disjointed and so difficult for us because our expectations are all just completely washed, right? I had this preaching plan and I was working on it, and I was like, okay, well, here's where we're going to be in April, and here's where we're going to be in May, and this is going to be really good for us as a church community. But this quarantine, this exile, has kind of chucked all that out, and so I'm finding myself in this place where I'm reading this message to the exiles. Hey, whatever you're doing, seek to do it well. And that's what God is telling the people of Israel through Jeremiah's letter here. He's saying, hey, seek to prosper even in the midst of this difficult time. And so one of the encouragements to me is we've got this extra time, let's make the use of it. And so I've got a backlogged list of a few things around my house that I'm trying to knock out, things that I've been dragging my feet on. I've got to replace the shower nozzle, and I hate messing with any plumbing stuff, and I've been dragging my feet, and my deadline is Friday, so you guys hold me to that, because otherwise I'll never do it, because I hate doing water stuff. So I'm going to replace that, and I've got, and in the process I was thinking, I could deep clean our bathroom, something that we've intended to and just never have gotten to. These are little ways that I can use the exile to seek to prosper the city. And with that, one of the processes I've been thinking through, and I was just reading an article about how for a lot of us in church leadership, we're having to recognize that we're completely out of control, right? We don't have the ability to put a great product out there on Sunday mornings anymore. We don't have the ability to make sure that we're giving good studies to people all the time. We're in this kind of shotgun, haphazard, do the best we can with a difficult situation place. And so we're kind of ragged, right? And I wonder if that's the same for the exiles, and I wonder if those are the moments where God really shows up, and once we have let go of this idea that we have to control everything or that it's all in our hands, once we've given up these expectations of building the church to a perfect place, once we've given up those things, and I wonder too, talked about realignment, and I wonder if in the ragged nature of all this is such an opportunity for us to reevaluate how do we understand joy? How do we understand hope? How do we understand peace? And see, I think a lot of times I was thinking through a contrast of the ways that our society and our culture tells us hope and peace come from. And so basically there's this idea you have to have a certain amount in savings, and you need to be on track at this point by the time you're 40, and this time by the time you're 50, and this is where your 401k needs to be. And I think for a lot of us that think about those things in the plan, we're looking at a devastated place. We're looking at severe difficulty. And I think the temptation is to say, God, why? Why are you doing this? What is going on? And I think that's a legitimate question. That's a part of grieving, and that's a part of lament. And I would encourage you to ask God those questions. But I also think this is an opportunity for us to really realign where peace and joy, where hope, where those things come from. And so I can't promise you your 401k is going to recover anytime soon. And I can't promise that all the jobs will reopen and that we'll all be profiting and healthy and happy in no time. That to me is what Jeremiah is talking about false prophets here, people that claim to speak with the voice of God that don't. God hasn't told me any of that. What I do know is that we human beings are created and we are designed with a need and a thirst to have a relationship with God. And I do know that is where the peace and the joy that is where true hope, and that is where all the other things that we thirst for, that's where they flow down from. And so this may be what you didn't want. This may be this exile, this quarantine. This may be the last thing that you would ever hope would be going on. But I want to encourage you to think about the fact that this may be an opportunity for you to really find your hope and your peace and your joy in God. And perhaps for me, for you, for some of us, as long as we have all those things that we think build the happiness and the joy in our lives, as long as we have all those things, perhaps we would never find them in God. Maybe the exile is a blessing because it takes away all those other things that we think give us hope and joy and peace. To me, this letter from Jeremiah to the exiles gives me a lot of hope, and it's not just the hope of Jeremiah 29:11, which if we're doing a short list of verses that I think people take out of context, I mean, so Jeremiah wasn't like, hey, what are college seniors really going to hear in about 3,000 years? That's not what this was about. And what it is about is it is a letter to people who are behind the lines, who are struggling, a letter to people whose normal is all ragged and messed up, who can't figure out if they're coming or going, and people are joking about their sleeping pajamas and their waking pajamas, and that's where a lot of us are at. And I'm watching my beard and my hair get unruly, and so this letter to Jeremiah, this hope for a future, is not so much about whether our bank accounts will recover, but it is about a God of covenant who has promised his presence with us. And that's the hope that I think we can all rest in. That's what God gives us time and time again. He offers us his presence. And so if I could encourage you to do any one thing as a result of this, I would encourage you to be okay being ragged for a little bit. We're all going to be ragged, and we're all going to be, and I would encourage you to express your frustration in the difficulty of the quarantine. That is an important thing. Maybe sometimes express it to other people and not just the same person. It's important we have a diversity of people carrying the load with us, but share why you feel ragged. I'm all thrown off right now. Ministry is a hard job in normal times, and in this time I feel like I don't ever really catch my breath, and I don't really know exactly where my best use of energy is. But what this does is it realigns me, and it forces me to see, hey, the things I do, yeah, they're good and they're important, but ultimately God is the mover, and God is the worker, and God is the one who promises. He's the one with the hope and the future, and it's not about my presence with people, it's about his. And so today you're in exile, and we're all raggedy, and we're all needing haircuts, and we're all needing all kinds of things, and that's okay. It's good to be in that place. That's the place I think God often meets us. So I hope that now you feel comfortable reading the entire chapter of Jeremiah 29, and now that you've been revealed, it's been revealed to you that there's an entire chapter around verse 11. But would encourage you to read that, to think about what it means to help the city to prosper, to boost it, and to recognize that we can work for the little things in all of our lives, and that you can be raggedy. It's okay to not be okay all the time. Be good to each other, exiles. Reach out to somebody and send a text this week, and let somebody know you're thinking about them. Bye.